There's rioting on some pro esports teams.
And Sean Merriing might be the newest meme to be South Parked.
Can Nintendo rumors save an unreleased console?
And why DRM, DLC, and GTA are more than just acronyms.
I'm Sam Chen.
And I'm Paul Mooney.
All these stories and more badges than a sold-out PAX West. Stick around, you're watching the Nerdy News Roundup.
We begin the show with No Man's Sky, the game that gave the gaming masses a term for being a bigger liar than American politicians, also known as Sean Merriing. Earlier this week, Steam, Sony, and Amazon were flooded with refund requests, which were granted. Sometimes even over 40 hours have been clocked in the overhyped survival game. Sam, when will the term Sean Merriing be accepted into the Oxford Dictionary?
Right after Donald Trumping is in there. I'm not really sure what Donald Trumping is right now. But after that one comes to fruition. I mean, I think it's totally respectable for him to catch a lot of flack at this, right? So we've covered this before. We talked about how the developers didn't necessarily play in the hype. Mm-hmm. This week, Jim Sterling put out a video kind of calling both sides of the argument out. And after watching that, I really understood, he didn't say no a lot, right. It was just like, oh, does it do this? Oh yeah, absolutely, sure, yeah. Like he wasn't necessarily proffering the information, but he wasn't denying it.
Yeah, I think he might have got a little too caught up in the hype too. So, I think that's kind of the expectation the internet had about in terms of his honesty. Like I was watching a video yesterday. I think it was like 20 minutes of Sean Murray lying. And yeah, it was like that was the name of the video itself, where they just went through like where he was talking about things that were in No Man's Sky and then just putting a big red X over it. So maybe he just got a little bit too excited about it, and with people's imagination, he kind of got in the same field for some reason. But
yeah, I mean, I could understand the fact that you're the belle of the ball, you're getting a lot of attention, you're going on like legit late night shows.
Right.
You want to impress, you want to feel good about yourself, you want others to feel good about you. It's really hard to do that when like debunk the myths about your game.
Right. And especially when you're coming from the place of what should have been an indie title, and again getting pushed into the AAA world when that may not have been your expectations to begin with. Like. It's like any actor coming from a small town who just gets caught up in the big Hollywood hype.
Yeah.
You're just saying some things that they're not true in the back of your head, but you're saying what people want to hear because it gives you a positive image. Yeah. So he's caught up in the hype.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, the story that's got to be learned here is that PR is not an easy gig to do, and just because you founded a game company doesn't mean you're qualified to do it.
Absolutely not, yeah.
DRM? We don't need no stinking DRM, unless, of course, we want to play DLC. This week, the fantasy board/card game Armello has announced that users who bought a DRM-free version on GOG will no longer be receiving DLC. The developer, League of Geeks, explained they would be unable to provide DLC or retain parity with the Steam version. Paul, will future DRM-free games be DLC-free as well?
I'm not sure that's the case. I think this just might be a unique situation. It's reading over the article, it's just like they had two versions of the game, the one that had digital rights management and one that didn't. The one that sold with digital rights management, they paid more attention to over the time. Where I think they came into fault was they should have said something to people who were buying it DRM free. Like, full disclosure, this game isn't going to get as much attention as the one that does have digital rights management for it. And that's the result of, you weren't honest about it, and now people are upset because you didn't tell them up front.
Right. I think this is just a bigger problem in general in gaming, and maybe the shoe has to drop at some point. Mm-hmm. But essentially, we've had DRM problems for a long time, and with this current generation of even console games, we became dependent on being always online, even for a single-player game.
This is true.
Which is obviously some form of DRM countermeasure as well. So I think at some point, people need to essentially kind of just suck it up and realize what it's going to mean for them to essentially play games in this generation, especially given the costs to developers and the cost of getting games now.
Mm-hmm. Especially, like, in this case specifically, where you have two different versions of it. Like, you have to develop your development team to one or the other. You cannot do both because they probably don't have that kind of manpower. They're not saying that officially, but I'm guessing that they're probably going to be like, wow, we got to get the one that doesn't have any digital rights management. No, they're probably not going through that.
But see, even then, I think if it was really a conspiracy theory and they're just like, you know what, we're not going to make as much money off the DRM free version, so we don't want to give them free content, or maybe we time lock our content, I got to feel for the developers a little bit on this one. And my mind might have shifted in the last couple of months of this, right? As I've gotten a little bit more into PC gaming, because one of my roommates is a PC gamer, points me to G2A all the time. And I'm like, look, these prices are insane. I got a game that was $50 retail for it with all the DLC for $7.
Yeah.
Now it's an older game, so it's a couple years old. But if I just wanted to go out on like PlayStation and buy it, there's no way I'm getting that deal.
No, not even close. Even with
so
Plus.
I get it. Like at some point, developers need to look for ways to get money, and if it means they need to put stuff more on sale and whatever, that's fine. But at the end of the day, I think it might actually be okay for them to protect their wallets.
Yes, I'm definitely not saying that you should bankrupt companies by buying DRM or DRM-free content, expecting equal treatment because they're still producing it. So yeah, they do have a point. Survival games might be all the rage, but dinosaurs alone cannot save you from the gamer community. Ark Survival Evolve caught flack last week as the game announced a $20 expansion pack. This normally wouldn't make news, except for the game is still in early access, the developer spun off a free-to-play version, a console version, all while pushing back the release date for the early access game that was printing them money. Sam, early access might have the initials EA, but is this another spin on the Madden curse?
I sure hope it is. The Madden curse is great for news. I think this has become more in light in the last couple of months, in the last couple of weeks, as we see a lot of early access games not live up to what they're doing or be canceled or any other of the different situations that have happened. And I think as someone who wasn't familiar with early access as a console gamer, getting exposure to it in the PC version, I'm just like, wait, we're paying you to like play test your game?
Right.
I don't know about that. This seems to me like the essential problem that you see with Kickstarter. And maybe the way that people are really hesitant to kickstart things now, people are going to start being hesitant to early access things.
I suppose. I mean, I think there's a big difference between what's happening with Ark versus like good early access. Because as you may or may not know, I've been playing a game not so much recently called Paragon that's been in early access and was supposed to be released in like July. I can tell you right now, where the game was versus where it is now, I had no problem paying my $60 for it. Because it was early access, but the core elements of the game were solid enough to be released when they were. They just evolved it to tweak and like get their feedback done, and then they made the game more playable or playable to a larger audience based off complaints. And we thought this was great. So doing early access the right way can make a game stellar. Doing early access in a way that just continues to make you money. Oh, but it's early access. Who cares if it's glitchy? I feel like that's what they're doing, but they're just keep on putting more and more out and collecting more and more money. And the game's it's been a buggy mess since the beginning.
Right. And I think this is exactly the point that the Kickstarter analogy still works with, right? So the last thing I kickstarted was the sous vide machine, right? Mm-hmm. But the reason I kickstarted is they said, we have 1.0 done. It's been in production. We have them produced. At the end of this Kickstarter, if you want 1.0, that gets shipped to you. 2.0 is going to introduce this kind of connectivity, this kind of other stuff. 2.0 won't come out till May. You can kickstart to get 2.0, or you can get 1.0 immediately. I kickstarted, got 1.0 immediately, was thrilled with my product and thrilled with the kickstarting process. And I think that's how you're explaining the Paragon situation.
Right.
They gave you an actual game.
Sure.
They tweaked, they updated, made it better. But you got what you paid for, and you liked it.
I got what I really wanted to get, and I was really thrilled with my product. Which is also goes to the point where, like, what you're saying is, if you're explaining what you have and what you're looking to do in development, that's fine. But if you just kind of throw stuff on top, we're just going to add this to it, and we're going to have a console version of it, and but there's going to be an expansion pack, you got to pay for it too. But if you just keep releasing things without an actual roadmap,
exactly,
that kind of it seems shady at that point.
Yeah.
Because you don't know where this is going anymore. Early access isn't a get-out-of-jail-free card, basically, for gaming.
Exactly.
And it feels like that's what's happening here. I think that's what the people are responding to.
Yep.
Get out of jail free. So early access.
Listen here, kids. PSA. Don't let game developer Sean Murray you. Think for yourselves.
Oh, man.
Just because Nintendo isn't saying anything meaningful or even specific about the NX doesn't mean we don't have unconfirmed rumors that are meaningfully specific. Yes, that's right. This week, Let's Play Video Games cites sources with knowledge about the console who claim that earlier development kits have the ability to run software from any region. A feature commonly found in Nintendo's handheld consoles before the 3DS, a region-free NX may give American fans all the non-localized JRPG goodness their hearts desire. Paul, is NX Fever just letting gamer journalists' imaginations run wild? Do they need a shot of whatever Konami's been drinking?
Everyone needs a shot of Konami's.
Oh, no, they don't. No, they don't.
No, like you were pointing out earlier, that this is about the developer kit initially, right? So it's wouldn't be unexpected for them to develop in every part of the country if that's the case. So we're just getting that out of the way from the get-go.
Right.
If this is what the information is coming from, then
Sure.
I get that point. But honestly, having a console not be regional, it kind of makes a lot of sense to me because unlike like home-based consoles and things like that, console or remote consoles, even though this is sort of the hybrid type deal where it's portable, being able to buy games in other parts of the world, I would think if you have that console, portable or not, or no, I guess portable primarily, you should be able to buy games in some other country.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at gaming and licensing and all the stuff that kind of causes these region-locked issues, we talked about last week with Halo Online, even Russia, right? I think when gaming started, the world was not as globalized as it is now, right? There wasn't as many cross-international platforms of any substance, not just video games.
Sure.
So it made sense to lock things into a region to make sure people have the game experience that you want.
Right.
You know, make sure you're not breaking any laws in other countries for like profanity or obscenities.
True.
So I get that. But right now, like we're 20, 30 years away from that. You know, we really need to kind of step up our gaming, step up everything to make sure things are just region free as they need to be.
Right.
I get every country is going to protect individual content, but I think gaming can take a very big first step in that and just say, you know what, games are everywhere.
Right.
And the only real problem is like market forces for pricing.
Yeah, it's true because we've got to remember the UK plays like twice as much as we do for pretty much everything. It's part of the value of their currency and also just
it was the value of their currency.
But I mean, you see what I'm saying though. Like, I mean, I'm sure it's that way for other specific places too, where people pay largely more. I think we're pretty much at a good premium for most of our gaming, but I don't know. Like, how is that going to affect sales if they have it completely regionalized? It's an interesting point.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because if we look back to the recession, you know, I was around Detroit at the time, and you know, books you buy have a U.S. price and a Canadian price, and the Canadian price is usually significantly higher. But during the recession, the U.S. and Canadian dollar were close to 1-to-1. So Canadians are just driving over the border, buying books, and going back.
Right.
So market fluctuations are always going to make things difficult.
Right.
You got to adapt in a way that you're nimble. I think that's what game companies need to do. So I hope Nintendo I hope this isn't just the developer version. I hope they do it long term because I think it's a good sign for the industry and it's a good move.
Right. They also need to make those sales. So
yeah.
Hopefully they'll be like really good with their sales projections.
Nintendo fanboys. Just give them what they want.
Just give them their money. Throw money at the screen. Nintendo will love you for it. It's time for a break. We pay the bills and see if our Paul and Sam's news simulator was approved for Steam Early Access.
When we come back, esports giants duke it out over who should pay their players less. Riot gets into a tweet storm with league team owners. Stay tuned. You're watching the Nerdy News Roundup. This week's sponsor we wish we had is Squanchtendo. Did you get on the Rick and Morty bandwagon this week like I did? Then you know why it would be amazing to work for Squanchtendo. The AAA VR gaming startup is set to bring you the VR experience of a lifetime all inside Rick's garage with more gadgets and gizmos than the Little Mermaid has. So if you know anyone at Squanchtendo, tell them we sent you and beg them to give us some HTC Vives and a developer version of their game. Or better yet, give me a job. And for our main story tonight, eSports, proof that any real sport is just about the money. Riot Games co-founder Marc Mero and Team SoloMid's owner Andy Reginald Dink got into a heated internet exchange about the structure of team compensation. Dink exchanged the first volley as he said, "I would like to see higher pricing and more infrastructure for players. A huge issue is the revenue opportunities for teams." Further suggesting that the volatility from sudden and often unpopular patches makes the competitive scene hard for owners to invest in. Mero was quick to respond, accusing Dink of being part of the problem and not the solution. Love me some Reggie, he said. But if he's so concerned with the financial health of his players, maybe he should spend some more of his millions that he's made/makes from League of Legends on paying them, instead of investing in other esports where he is losing money. Further noting that it's not Riot's obligations to determine market pricing for players. Paul, how long before we see salary caps and draft systems for competitive esports?
I think we're a ways off from this being an NFL type situation where we have conferences and stuff like that. But it is a sign that esports is progressing. With like the problem they had with coaches we talked about before, and now they're talking about pay for the players. I think it does give the inclination that esports are becoming like actual sports. What actual sport? I mean physical, in-person sports more than anything else. But this is an interesting subject because player compensation is something that hasn't really been touched on very much in the past concerning esports players. Generally, kids just get incentivized by, oh, if you play this game, you're a top earner or you're in the top spot, you get prize money. What we're talking about now is becoming so commercialized where players are to be warranting some sort of salary, like any other professional sports player should, which is an interesting subject to me, honestly.
Right. I mean, you pointed out to me earlier that, regular sports teams don't get paid by their leagues. They get paid by their owners and by their teams, essentially, right? And even in this case, Riot does pay competitive league players like $12,000 a year. I mean, it's not a ton, but it's good money. I mean, I think top league players, the ones you would see at an LCS, are in the like six figures anyway, right? So I'm not saying that they're hurting for money, but they're certainly not making the boatloads that some of these owners are making.
Right.
And I think that's really the problem. Because right now, I think advertisers are weary of investing in certain players. Maybe it's because players change teams from time to time. Maybe it's because they don't want to disrupt this like fragile ecosystem that's there for sponsorship. But I can see a world where, just like in professional sports, you've got teams who get certain amount of money from sponsorships, naming rights, and things like that. And you get players who get other income from advertising. And then maybe it's up to that player to share it with his teammates.
It's true. I guess you could structure you could put all that into a contract, right? Like in theory, you're going to get X amount of advertisers. The advertisers are going to pay you X amount of money. This percentage has to be dedicated to team allocation, which I think would be fine. Because either way, they're going to be making quite a bit of money if that's the structure they're going to be going into. Because obviously, advertiser revenue is the revenue that anyone seeks, no matter what medium you're in. You want to get your sponsorship from somewhere, and honestly, if it helps develop your team to the point where you're attracting more players, you can only make more money if that's the structure you go with. So it seems like something that could be visited and definitely should be visited in the future, because obviously the league shouldn't be held responsible. I think I kind of agree with them on that point where they shouldn't be like, oh, we've made X amount of money and people are attracted to our game. Now we have to start paying the teams for players who are the owners who already make quite a bit more money, or money that's parity into what we make. We should be giving them their players to compensate this more. It doesn't make any sense.
Exactly, because at the end of the day, I think the most interesting part about any sort of competitive sports environment is like having an underdog that comes from behind and wins, right? Mm-hmm. Not every team is going to be the Yankees, and regardless of what the performance is, right? So if the league starts setting what the salary should be, then you're probably going to just get uniform payments across the board. Right? And that's why I think owners just need to step up and be like, maybe, you win an LCS, this is what you get. We will double the prize pool and the money. We'll give you a bonus on your salary for doing this. There's no reason they can't structure incentives to make the players more money when they make more money.
Right.
And I think that's perfectly fair to players. And so, in a sense, I do think a lot of the onus really should be on team owners.
It should be. Absolutely should be. Because, think about it this way. College players can't be paid anything for athletics because obviously it kind of ruins the whole system where people are just going to school for sports and certain schools bring in more money. So if all things are equal, but the whole point of going to a college is so you can go to the NFL. There is no above like professional gaming esports. So if everyone was played flat, there'd be no incentive for growth. So having it work on the individual team level makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, and I think some of this might also be a reflection of the fact that some team owners may really just not understand the in and outs of teams like esports, right? They can see the dollar figures, they can see what the prize pools and everything else is, but to come out and be like, oh, you know what, you patch things and then that makes it difficult for us. That's a load of crap. I think yes, that happens, but let's look at a game that's been around in a very competitive scene for a while where the company does own everything, right? Wizards of the Coast and Magic. Right now, there are third parties that make a bunch of money on Magic tournaments. Wizards still hosts the big ones with the big payouts. They change up so much of their game on a year-to-year basis. Mm-hmm. Sometimes changing the rules so an entire set of cards becomes devalued. Are players like, all right, well, I'm not playing this game anymore? No, I mean, the thing is, when you do it right and you do it in a balanced way, players are forced to adapt, and it just makes for a more interesting competitive scene. If the players on top remain on top using the exact same strategies, no one's going to watch that over time.
Right. No, by having the changes, you actually kind of alter the dynamics, so it actually makes it a progressive system where you can actually watch and enjoy, because what's he going to do now when his just go-to trump cards don't really work the same way? Yeah. So I think patches are actually kind of a good thing for esports in that way. So complaining about them as something that's kind of a hindrance, again, makes no sense. I honestly don't think a lot of the owners understand, like, not only just the competitive nature of games, but I don't think they know how to manage a sports franchise overall.
Yeah.
Like, esports is going to be kind of a mystery because it's something that's just caught to catch on. But at the same time, like, there's people who have been playing or having corporatized competitive sports for quite some time now.
Yeah.
And I mean, they don't all have it figured. I'm not going to say there's a gold standard for like compensation or how sporting should work, but at least they have some experience in it, and I think they should try to mimic some.
I don't know, Paul. I think Mark Cuban pretty much does know both these things.
All right, look. So there is a golden child, but I do think he knows quite a bit about both of these things. But still, I think overall, like, there's just no full model for how it should all work.
Absolutely. So, esports team owners, either become Mark Cuban or grow up.
Or hire us as PR men, because we'll spin this way any way you want to. Like, that's not a big deal.
You guys are great. Riot's horrible.
Nerdy_Knights. Just come to us. We'll fix all your problems.
Nerdy_team owners rock_knights.com.
The Hyperloop train left the station.
Do you think pro esports players are fairly compensated? Let us know if you think team owners or game developers should be coughing up more dough in the comments below. Can't get enough of nerd culture? Then check out all the great content we have on the Nerdy Knights YouTube channel. Join me and Eric on Couch Co-op Confidential as we stream couch co-op games. We're currently making our way through the galaxy on the back of a space ostrich. Nope, not No Man's Sky. We're playing LEGO Star Wars The Force Awakens. Mike and I have just picked up the Stick of Truth and are saving South Park from the Drow Elves. Check out Let's Play Podcast for a whole new way to Let's Play. And don't forget to check out our Twitch channel, Nerdy_Knights, where we host the most elaborately set up Rock Band 4 game ever. Can you say wireless in-ear monitors? Well, you shouldn't, but we do anyways. Check out all the links below for this great content and more.
And now for everyone's favorite segment of the week, we turn to our lightning round, where we answer the age-old question, does this matter? If you thought the buddy system was about staying safe, then you've never played Pokemon Go. Pogo fans have data mined the latest version and determined the game will be introducing a buddy system for you and your favorite Pokemon. Sam, is giving you all the candy all Niantic has to do to get its player base back?
Stranger danger. Don't accept candy from strangers, even if their name is Niantic. You know what? This is back to the conversation we had last week about where Pokemon Go is going and their DAUs. This is a great feature. Yeah. People like it. You don't have to keep catching some of these rare Pokemon in order to get more candy to evolve your Pokemon. This is all great stuff. The problem is too little, too late.
Yeah.
So it matters, but it's not enough to get people back.
Yeah, it matters, and had they have said, oh, this is something we're going to be rolling out with our next patch instead of trying to release a different region, it would have had more impact, and maybe probably would have kept people playing more. Now, as this is a lure to get people back, I'm not feeling it.
Don't take the candy from the strangers.
I won't.
This is like taking candy from a baby, where the baby is Niantic and has a pile of money.
Oh, man.
If you're a multinational corporation betting everything on one last console release, what's your first priority? Well, protecting your intellectual property rights, of course. Nintendo did a mass filing this week focusing on Game Jolt, citing over 562 fan-made games for removal. Paul, should we quit our news anchor jobs and become copyright lawyers?
Well, I guess it'd be a good way to end it all, wouldn't it? I think this sort of matters in the grand scheme of Nintendo having to protect itself in the future. Like you were mentioning before, that this is probably a preventative measure more than anything else. So it matters from the perspective of Nintendo. doesn't really so much matter to it does matter to the fan base who made these games, obviously.
Right.
The Nintendo participating fan base, not fan release game enthusiasts.
Yeah.
Not so much.
I mean, I think this is the part where, game journalists and everything need to just, be a little bit more straight and thorough with their coverage, right? At the end of the day, if Nintendo doesn't go after companies or players who create these fan-made games, eventually when one comes out and is it a commercial success, they're going to have less of a leg to stand on to be like, no, you can't make that Mario game that you didn't license from us. Right? So they have to do this as kind of a responsible corporation. But I understand there are probably a lot of people in Nintendo like, this DMX Mario game is cool and no one's making money off it. Let's just let them have it. Mm-hmm. But
corporate, they can't do that. Because again, like you said, I remember the original Nintendo had like Bible Adventures, which was like a pirated game. And at the time, it made no difference. But as technology goes on, someone does make that commercially successful game and starts making a boatload of money.
And let's just be honest. Like, people who play these types of video games are smart enough and creative enough to figure out little workarounds for this that you don't need it just on a public site like this. I mean, I'm not advocating that, but it's the reality of what's going to happen.
True.
So quit your complaining and just, torrent Pokemon Uranium. It's there.
I mean, that already happens anyway.
Exactly.
Ubisoft might just be the very best at making video game movies, as Sony pulled the Uncharted movie from its release schedule. Originally slated for the silver screen on June 30th, 2017, the movie is now on indefinite hiatus. Sam, will Nathan Drake ever get his chance at dethroning Indiana Jones on the big screen?
Well, if Shia LaBeouf gets a chance, I'm pretty sure Nathan Drake deserves a chance. So I don't think this matters. I think it's one of those things where video game movies still have yet to see a great success record. Mm-hmm. I think the weird part about this story, however, is that it seemed to be over the fact that people couldn't write the right movie for this. Yeah. And that, I think, is a crock of bullshit. Well, it's not a crock of bullshit, but when you have this many games under your belt that people love, that all have stories and dialogue in them, it doesn't take a creative genius to make something workable. So, I mean, maybe they're just pushing for a better quality one, but I wouldn't put my money on it.
I think the problem is they tried to stray too far from the Uncharted. I mean, remember they first advertised the original Uncharted game? They're like, my girlfriend thinks it's a movie, and it's actually a bit... If they already think it's a movie, why don't you just lift that exact script and put it to the silver screen? But I remember reading earlier about it, that it was Mark Wahlberg, and it's supposed to be like a family adventure type thing where just get Nathan Fillion and repeat the lines from the freaking game. It'll be fine. Everyone will love it. It's already built for you. The script is already written.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think this is just a miss in the context that you're not making this movie for gamers. Yeah. Stop thinking you're doing that. You're making this movie for the mass public.
You made a game that people wanted to watch anyway, who don't even like video games. So now you want to stray from that formula to make a movie that video gamers don't like. What is going on?
Again, PR pitchman, we're here for you.
We're here for you.
And Sony.nerdynightsAreGreat.com.
If you want this movie to be VR, Sony VR, we're here. We're here for you, Sony.
We got you. Just because you can flash a peace sign doesn't mean you're Lindsay Lohan. A judge ruled this week against 2 lawsuits from Lindsay Lohan and Karen Gravano, who are suing publisher Take-Two for unauthorized depiction in Grand Theft Auto V. The 5-judge panel ruled that the suits are without merit as the names were not used, and this was clearly a work of fiction and satire. Paul, is it time for us to rethink our plan of becoming lawyers?
Again, I think it's a good way to end it all. I mean, I remember reading about this case originally. It was a couple of years ago. It was right when Grand Theft Auto first came out. And I was like, there's no way they're going to win. Not only was the character that Lindsay Lohan was supposed to be modeled after nothing like her, looks nothing like her. I mean, if she's saying she acts that poorly in public, then sure. But that could be anyone. And then the girl on the cover, I think she said they just stole from her. She's like, look, I'm flashing a peace sign. She's flashing a peace sign. I think they showed the actual girl who they modeled after, and it wasn't her. What was she thinking?
You're right. I mean, honestly, I think this does matter because it might prevent celebrity lawsuits in the future, and I think that's horrible. I want more crazy celebrity lawsuits that think that they own these games. I don't care. This is hilarious. I want more of this. I want more of it.
Yeah, me too. We got to keep TMZ in business. Keep suing celebrities. Keep suing video games.
You got the money. Just give it to the lawyers.
You're there to entertain us anyway. This is entertainment, damn it.
Mooney and Chen Incorporated.
We will be your PR men for this action as well. If you want to see a video game, contact us at nerdy_nights. Who's Steam's biggest competitor? Well, soon it might just be Facebook. The social networking mega giant is developing a PC gaming platform in partnership with Unity Technology. Unity is used for creating all sorts of gaming experiences on mobile, desktop, VR and AR, Mac and Windows, and more. Sam, will the next Pokemon or League of Legends be showing up in your newsfeed?
You know, I think there's a good chance. That being said, developers are always looking for big platforms, right? Mm-hmm. So I think this does matter because Facebook is one of the biggest platforms out there.
True.
And if they're really truly committed in developing a gaming platform that gets people to play a lot more, this is a good market to do it. Especially with the fact that they own Oculus.
Yeah.
You know, like that's a great untapped market for them for both hardware experiences, advertising experiences, and social experiences.
That's true.
So if they can nail this down, Steam might really have some pressure on their hands.
I think so as well. I mean, Facebook has always been that kind of untapped experience where it has a humongous user base. I mean, not all of them are necessarily gamers, but if you can kind of slow roll them into doing something more casually, I remember when Mafia Wars is really popular and stuff like that. Sure. If you can come up with like a small experience that ends up being into like a full-on gaming spectrum, I mean, it's definitely worth a shot. Because even if you aren't the most successful thing, like even if you're getting like 5-10%, 10% is a huge number. Yeah. You're talking about Facebook.
Well, no, and that's the point, right? Because when we read these stats that talk about how like females are actually the bigger side of the gaming market now.
A lot of that is mobile.
Almost all of that is mobile, right? Not to say I don't want girls playing console games and playing PC games, but the reality of how big the market is for stuff that's not on console and PC and is still making money is huge. Mm-hmm. It'd be a shame for Facebook to ignore it. It'd be a shame for anyone to ignore it. So I think this is a good move.
I also think it's also a big point that Facebook is always trying to move in a different direction with what they're trying to do with their platform. Because, I mean, after they've got the social features done, which obviously they've mastered very well enough, what's next? I think gaming is a good way to not only bring more people to it, but also have that social interaction escalate higher. So,
yep. And finally, a story with all the feels. Bethesda Games sent a care package to Redditor NudeJ47 after another family tragedy. The gamer made a heartfelt post on Reddit about how he spent 500 hours in the game to help deal with the loss of his father. And then just months later, his 24-year-old brother also passed. Bethesda sent the gamer a care package with some goodies, but also included an homage to his late brother as an NPC in the game's upcoming DLC, Nuka World. Paul, I think I might need to stop cutting onions before the show. What can community managers learn from this?
Well, I think it's a really heartfelt thing that's happened here. I mean, all gaming or any monetization aside, like for someone who loses two family members but still finds a sense of peace and resolve in a video game, for them to in turn respond with something like that, I think it's just tremendous. And I think it matters a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree. And I think, you know, we just with Fallout 4 and Bethesda specifically, we've seen a lot of like fun, quirky stories that just make us feel like the people who work at Bethesda actually like have a sense of humor, have a heart, they care.
They have souls.
I mean, you remember the one about the guy who just sent bottle caps to Bethesda, and they were like, all right, here's a copy of Fallout 4 when it comes out. Like, what does it cost them to print one license? Not a lot. So I think, you know, developers and community managers need to get into this habit of realizing community managers aren't PR people, aren't just PR people. They're not supposed to be defending the developer from the ranks of the gamers. They need to bridge the gap. And an example like this is a good example of bridging that gap.
Sure. Yeah, making the communication between the developers and then the community that they're developing the games for in a heartfelt way. That's, I mean, really human. Like, this is a really humanitarian effort they've gone through. I mean, it's not something I've heard of very much recently, but it shows that there's actually real people working here. They're not just some corporate yes men who are doing this to make money. They're actually engaging with you and they're responding to you and they're living their lives to a certain degree with you. So I think you should all take note from that.
Exactly. And especially when you see what happens when you put a developer on the screen. You get the Destiny throw money at the screen quote, right? And then you get Deesh who's like, oh shit, like,
yeah. Can you see
why are you saying this to people? So yeah, I mean, I think community managers are an important role in these kind of organizations, and as long as they keep kind of unlocking these like little gems of potential between the game itself and players who really care about the game, the developers, everything like that, the better off the gaming community is going to be.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that.
As the show comes to a close, it's time for Meme of the Week. This week's meme comes to us from former Naughty Dog artist Lily Nishida and the meme favorite Overwatch. We've seen many depictions of Overwatch heroes, but none cuter than the canine agents of Roverwatch. Like this one of Tracer, dashing through time with her trademark doggles. Or this one of Widowmaker. I sure as hell wouldn't want to be a cat in Roverwatch. Sometimes you need comic relief, provided by McCree. Just because his hat covers his eyes doesn't mean it's not high noon. And finally, sometimes it pays to be ready for cold weather, as May has her shoes on and is ready to freeze her foes as she does a triple Salchow. If you have any ideas for next week's meme of the week, be sure to tweet us at nerdy_nights. And that's it for this week's Nerdy News Roundup. Don't let us go the way of celebrity game lawsuits. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe.
I'm Paul Mooney.
And I'm Sam Chen.
Join us again next week because the last thing the world needed was another nerdy news show, but you tuned in anyways.